Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish Prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hi folks, and welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. Nice to be with you again. Hope you and yours are well. Back in familiar surroundings here again, back in my home, back from Dubai. Great time. Sad and glad to leave, but always nice to go home. And I hope you're all well and getting yourselves all geared up for Christmas. We'll probably have one more show before then, a couple of specials during the holidays for you. Keep you going with a wee splattering of Prism throughout the holidays. Let's get the crew in and let's get started, get to this week's stuff covered. And over there in Dakota, it's the old Cockbridge Cavalier himself.
How you doing, Roddy? All right? Always
better. It's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Aye, good. Packing up in here, moving for this apartment to see what the next manoeuvre's going to be. So, it's the usual wandering about.
You get a white Christmas?
Guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed. Here in Arizona, North Dakota, but I'm going to Arizona and California instead. So no white Christmas, I don't think, down there.
Only in the movies. Anyway, talking of movies, let's bring in our movie star from down in the borders, our Yvonne, oblique Shirley Temple, the film star. How are you doing?
Hi, Roddy. Yes, I'm fine. I see that the bromance between Humza Yousaf and Anas Sarwar is virtually over after some Labour peer tweeted something really damaging, in fact, actionable against Humza, linking him and his wife to Hamas.
Well, that'd be George Folks, no doubt. Our Lord George Folks, for fuck's sake.
Well, I was going to say, be careful on your pronunciation there.
Yes, I was carefully made sure I said for fuck's sake.
Well.
Yep. Let's get in just to see if I've broken the law. Let's bring in our favourite lawyer, our Eva.
Hello again, Roddy. Another quick week.
Oh, for sure.
I'm looking forward to Christmas. A wee break.
At my age, they always seem to get quicker. Make the most of them all, and of course our weatherman, our Lloyd, making up the team. Here we are, Lloyd. How are you?
I'm well. Things are interesting here in Freeport, Edinburgh. They're closing down Grangemouth. They're closing down the plastics factory, and now we're selling the airport. Everybody wants out of the Freeport, it looks like.
Yeah. And it's also, kind of the amazing thing is you can't get into the EU with free ports. They're not acceptable in the EU. And it's one of the SNP's sort of big policies is to get into the EU. They keep telling us they also want to get into free ports.
Yep.
They keep doing these things that just don't make sense. But what can I tell you?
It's a great ability.
Yes, they do without any help from anyone else. But let's get started. I'm going to start on the Westminster and I'll be ending in the Westminster. And I'll be starting with you, Phil, and ending with you as well. A special bit right at the end here, which I'll need your comments on. But starting earlier in the week, David Cameron, who was incensed that Humza had spoken to President Erdogan and a few other, I believe, leaders while he was at the COP 20, was it 26, this one? 28, I don't know, I can't remember what it is. That one in Dubai. And he's talking about closing down all the Scottish trade missions as a punishment for the naughty Scots. But Techie, have you got that picture of Mary Lou McDonald and the lovely First Minister O'Neill with President Biden? Did I send you that? There you go. So it seems that Westminster, I don't expect to be punishing Michelle O'Neill for talking to old Poker Joe. But typical two sets of rules, Phil. One for the old jocos and one for everyone else.
Yeah, the house jocks being treated as they deserve. What an idiot idea to to rent broom cupboards in British embassies. You know, it's such a stupid thing to do. We knew it at the time. Why are you playing right into their hands? Why do you continue to do things that make us look stupid and actually strengthen their own arguments? Because what we should have done, and we talked about at the time, was the Irish would have rented us a room. No problem. The Irish would have done that. And you see, the Irish who had been treated as proper governments of an independent and complete nation. The Americans don't have the same disregard to Ireland as they do to us, the Scots, because the whole United Kingdom issue isn't as threatened as much by a united Ireland as it is by Scotland breaking away. The cash cow that Britain so desperately needs is Scotland. It doesn't want Northern Ireland because since the Second World War, Northern Ireland has cost the United Kingdom money, whereas Scotland continues to be that cash cow that we always have been. And it's the primary reason why we will not be permitted to walk away. And it's embarrassing. I mean, this superior, uppity attitude that we've allowed the British to take, and they're just humiliating us time after time. And these idiots just can, like I say, if they're not completely stupid, Tomsit is not a completely stupid man. He knows much of what's going on, but he continues to do what he's told by the people in whose employ he is, and it ain't us, it ain't the people of Scotland. He doesn't serve the people of Scotland. Get rid of these shysters, all of them. We talked about a clear out. We gave big lists. We're not even close. We haven't even cut the snake off the head. We need, separate the rest of the body and get it back in line. The SNP can be saved, but only with a proper clear out and a complete removal of the head. Get rid of these shysters. It has to happen. Otherwise, you'll continue to be embarrassed by garbage like this.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that the SNP can be saved, but I admire your resilience in hoping so. Your positivity, Phil. Yvonne, a lot of people in our movement say, no, you can't say Scotland's a colony. It's not true. But here we have David Cameron proving absolutely we're a colony. For being naughty boys, for daring to talk to leaders of governments, we're going to close down your missions. And it sent a rather nasty letter as well. It's quite annoying.
It's really humiliating. And for that piece of gammon to come swaggering in and dictating to us about who our democratically elected representatives can and can't talk to is disgraceful. I mean, on the lowest possible level, this was two Muslim men chattering and exchanging discussions. And I have no doubt, like any Muslims meeting today, the big issue is Gaza, because it is a bloody issue, because it's a genocide unfolding on TV in our front rooms. It's the first time a genocide has been filmed live on television. Everyone's talking about Gaza. And as I say, for that piece of gammon, the vermin in ermine coming here and telling us who we can and cannot talk to, it's unacceptable. And how many times do I say it? We've got to rise up, get a revolutionary spirit and take our bloody independence, because scum like him are never, ever, ever going to deliver it. You know, Alex Salmon pulled the wool over his eyes once and we got the referendum. I don't think we'll be able to dupe them again. And we shouldn't have to. You know, I keep saying to people, I'm 7 miles away from the border. I think we should just go and do an Israeli action, occupy the border and put up a bloody checkpoint and find out who's coming in and who's going out of our great country. You know, they keep going on about controlling borders. Well, we need to control ours and keep people like him and Keir Starmer out. Although, as I said last week, I doubt we'll see Keir Starmer here for a very long time.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope. Lloyd, I mean, when it happened, our government didn't exactly react very well, did they? They just sort of kept kind of silent about it instead of doing something.
Yeah, it's another one of these opportunities where you can say to the country, we're being treated like we're recalcitrant children. This is how the British state reacts to us, and react to it. But I think the essential problem is, what have these missions actually achieved? You should be able to come out and say, X number of jobs, X amount of investment, direct educational links, research and development links we have made through having these missions. But unfortunately, the record for these missions seems to be, like many things in the Scottish Government currently, entirely and completely opaque. But that aside, this is an opportunity to attack the Westminster government. This was an opportunity to attack the union. And yet again, no action whatsoever. But then again, we're waiting for action in Grangemouth. Nothing's happened on that either.
No, it's quite appalling, Eve, isn't it? I mean, eating man, you know, talking to us as if we're, as Lloyd says, recalcitrant children that need put in our place. Sure, it's the old usual. Get up the back of the bus, Scotland, shut up. You're here. You know, we Scots should be seen and not heard.
I think what this shows is that Scotland has the status that it has as a, what I think they call in the COP process, a sub-national state. And they have committees of the regions there. And it was only in those events that Humza Yousaf had any kind of prominence and got into the official photographs, because the official photos of the state leaders excluded him, because as far as COP and all other international organisations are concerned, Scotland is simply a region that would be compared to some of the states and cities of other independent countries. We're very much an afterthought. But I like the notion that, I think it was Phil said, we could have hired rooms from the Irish. Hopefully that's what we're doing now. Maybe it's the case right now that we're being very unfair to Angus Robertson and Humza Yousaf and all the others. They're maybe on the phone at the moment to the Irish. They're maybe speaking to President Higgins and Mary Lou and Michelle and asking to get their broom cupboard or their photocopying room in Berlin or Brussels or Paris or Prague. Pretty confident that's what they'll be doing. You know, they must be doing something for the amount of money that we're spending, sending Angus Robertson as an international emissary on a regular basis around all these places. It's not that long ago, it seems, that he was in America for their Tartan Day in the beginning of April and all that sort of stuff. But we've yet to see the return. All we hear about every day is that money is tight, we're skint, it's all Westminster's fault. But if we had innovation and power and courage and steel from the leaders of the Scottish Government at the moment, they wouldn't have just wrung their hands like Humza did and said, this is a very reckless and silly thing that David Cameron has said. They would have said, oh, big man, shut it. We'll do what we want to do because we're Scotland. We're taking our country back step by step, and right around the world, we're going to speak to the entire international community on our terms when we feel like it, not when you say that we're allowed out of our box temporarily. That's what's wrong. Get the fighting spirit back. Stand up and be proud to be Scottish at home and abroad.
Clear here. On that, what we should be doing, Phil, of course, is engineering our independence. Actually, we should be saying to David Cameron, shut it, Eton boy. We're getting out of here. And the way to do it is Angus Brendan McNeill, remind your good friend, reminded us this week with his St Andrew's Day motion. I think we've got it there as well. A quick flash up of that, techie. Yeah, and basically what this is saying is that Holyrood has the power in the Scotland Act, legally, to call an election. They can do it several ways. One is for the First Minister to resign. If they can't appoint a new one, I think it's in 28 days, then it falls. Or so they could amend the Scotland Act, Phil, and just make it an independence plebiscite. Now, that would unite the movement. It would get us all on side, and deals could be done in conjunction with a constitutional convention. What we need to be doing. But instead, the SNP are going another way.
Yeah, it's because they don't want independence. They don't actually, it's not the prime directive anymore. It's ceased to be for a long time, and our broken record renditions of that fact don't bring me any pleasure whatsoever, but it's so obvious. Angus laid it out there. Alex has laid it out. Alpa has laid it out. So many people within the SNP, all of those people, of course, were SNP, said at the beginning when Nicola took over and started to meander, we were saying, wait a minute, hold on a minute here. Why aren't we focused on what matters? Why are we continuing with this tree-hugging, lentil-munching, sandal-wearing pish? You know, why can't we just get down to what matters? And then you've now got this, they've now, SNP selected a candidate for, I've got to try it, Narila Nanar, Angus's wonderful seat. Because, and they've got this Susan Thompson who's been elected with I think there wasn't many votes in it, but 52% I believe belies that. I think you usually get some facts on that. But she said, this is what she says when she was elected, right? I am thrilled to be selected by the members of the island. We had a very friendly and good-natured selection contest, which means if it comes from the SNP right now, it's a lie. It was bitter, torn and twisted. And when it comes from the SNP these days, such statements, you just believe the exact opposite, because that's what they're doing. They just say the opposite. This is tearing the SNP asunder in the Western Isles, because their elected representative, Angus Brendan McNeill, had the courage and has the courage to stand up for what his constituents want, what his SNP members want, which is independence. Now I'm looking forward to taking a positive message campaign to the people, she says, this Susan, but it's garbage. Is this the best? You've seen what their election mantra came out with when they was announced the National. Here's a quote for it. Years of Westminster mismanagement have left us with a soaring cost of living crisis that's hammering families across the islands. Voters in Scotland deserve better than having to choose between this discredited Tory government and a pale red imitation of them. That's it. That's it. Wherefore my country? You know, not you will be fighting. There's no fighting talk here. There's nothing about independence. Wake up, folks. See, in the Western Isles, vote Angus Brendan. Or I'll just go and shoot yourself in the foot. Go for a swim or something stupid, you know. It's just... the SNP need a kick in the gonads here, because it's long overdue for these clowns, and we need to tear them down.
Yvonne, our SNP friends are always talking about everyone else splitting the vote, the independence vote. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. I think those people have said that the people likely to benefit most out of an SNP putting a candidate up against Angus will be the Labour Party. Instead, as Angus has pointed out in his motion on St Andrew's Day, they can change the rule. The rules in Holyrood at the moment is you need a 2/3 majority to call a general election, but that can be changed by the ruling SNP Green government to just a simple majority. That's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be putting candidates up against independence people like Angus Brendan McNeill. It seems with the same as we did SNP 1-2. We told them it would allow unionists in. We've told them if they put a candidate here, it'll allow a unionist in. They don't care. They keep putting party before country, do they not?
You know, the people there are very aware of how valuable a good constituency MP is, MSP is. And I'm quite confident that he will get local votes behind him, because the SNP have treated the islanders, anyone in need of a ferry service, they've treated them all like garbage. And I just don't think they'll put up with it anymore. And Labour's not much better. So I'm quite confident that Angus will get re-elected. I didn't even try and pronounce the name of the constituency after disgracing myself on the platform at the steps in Glasgow when I said the people of Govan, and everybody fell about laughing. And of course, now I know it's Govan. So
did the people from Glengarry laugh at you?
Did who?
The people from Millengarvey, did they laugh?
Oh, I blame you and Eva. You haven't taught me properly yet. You haven't immersed me fully into the Scottish culture. As I say, I'm giving it lardy at this rally, and you know, getting up to the crescendo, and then everybody just fell about helpless with laughter when I said go, and I didn't know what it said, but I was forgiven later. But still, so no, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his constituency.
Just call it the Western Isles then.
I hope he wins, and you know, I just, he's a good constituency MSP, and he wants independence, and he's been punished for daring to dream of independence from a party that's just lost the plot. And I was reliably informed that the party probably won't be around next month. You know, we keep being told that it can't continue, and if it's got money problems, and it has, it's certainly not getting the donors in, but it's just like waiting for the damn thing to teeter and collapse so we can just stop talking about it on Prism.
We'll all be at work then. Lloyd, you know, I take it you know Angus over the years. Do you see that he's got any chance of holding that seat with an SNP candidate against him?
I really don't know, because Torquil Crichton, the Labour candidate, has got serious familial connections, particularly in Lewis and Harris. And to some degree, though it had broken up over the past couple of elections, there's an awful lot of kind of family support goes behind candidates, which is why the Labour Party held it so long after the death of Donny Stewart rather. I think the one thing I think is the one good thing that's come out of this is at least the SNP members in the Western Isles had the brains not to select possibly the most corrupt and incompetent National Secretary the Scottish National Party ever had in Angus MacLeod. I'm very, very glad that happened. The damage that man did to the party in concert with Angus Robertson is practically immeasurable. But I've got a feeling that Angus Brendan can win the seat, because I think there's a general attitude amongst people in the islands that they do stand together, irrespective of other divisions that may exist amongst them. They do stand together, and it is clear that's what has happened here is that Angus Brendan, and as Yvonne and others have said, has been punished for his pro-independent stance. But I also think that the people of the Western Isles will not be best pleased that the Labour Party is shipping in an ex-Daily Record Sunday Mail journalist, a man with a vicious, vicious attitude towards, I would suggest, both Scotland and its people. And he might be in for a surprise, because they don't like people being parachuted in on the top of them. Now, he may originally have come from the islands, but he's very much part of Starmer's Labour Party. And I don't see the good people of the Western Isles being particularly in favour of a candidate who can't tell the difference between a man and a woman.
No, absolutely. I think the wee church up there will have a think or two to say about that as well. Eva, it just seems to be one body blow after another. Here is if they not get enough problems to seek without, attacking Angus, could they not have put their efforts elsewhere?
Well, I see the headlines on Twitter already are SNP ramp up their anti-independence campaign. That's spot on. You know, you said they're splitting the vote. They're not splitting the vote. They're driving a coach and horses through the entire ethos of the independence movement. We were supposed to be a movement of people who had, one common aim, which was independence for our country. That's what the SNP was. It was an amalgamation of a couple of parties that had that as the principal purpose. The secondary purpose, but alongside that, was to further the interests of the people of Scotland and of our country. And they've signally failed to do that too. They're rudderless, I suppose, now. There's very, very little other app I can think of. We've seen over the past couple of years at least talk of protecting devolution, protecting Holyrood, strengthening devolution, being stronger for Scotland. We've seen innumerable press releases and conferences and newspaper items and television appearances where the I word has rarely, if ever, been mentioned by SNP representatives. And earlier this week, Stephen Noon, ex-SNP advisor and I think a policy man now, spoke about the Constitution and the potential that there was for a Labour government to be elected to Westminster. And he said that this should actually result in the strengthening of devolution and that the process towards independence, which remains his preferred option, was one that we should take slowly and carefully and do it properly over a period of time. It could be 10 years, it could be 20 years, it could be 50 years. Well, everybody watching knows of my immortality. I'm going to see it. I'm not so sure about the rest of you if you continue to rely on the tactics of the SNP. You know, as Phil has said, perhaps it's time that the SNP gave up the ghost because they are not intent on prioritising independence. If they were, they'd have joined in some talks about Scotland United. We would have seen the Constitutional Convention that Nicola Sturgeon promised almost 4 years ago now. It's still not seen the light of day like so many other promises that she made. But Humza and Stephen Flynn have both spoken about a constitutional convention too. And what they've failed to do is to explain why that cannot happen now. They've both said that can happen if the SNP win the Westminster election. That's stupid. That's closing the stable door when the horse hasn't just bolted. The horse has crossed the country in one of the non-existent ferries and is halfway over to visit Angus Brendan McNeill when he's out tending his sheep. It's not good enough. We're needing some focused thinking from the people in the leadership of this country who are supposed to be making this a better place for all of us, as opposed to seeking to continue to line their own pockets. But I think there's hope for Angus Brendan McNeill, because if you look at the statistics released tonight on that election for the SNP candidate, the winner got 52% of the votes. Angus MacLeod, the runner-up, got 48%. The difference between them was supposed to be 8 votes. Work it out. It means 200 SNP members in the Western Isles voted for that in that election. So 200 voted. I'd like to know what the turnout was and know how many SNP members are left in the Western Isles, because it sounds to me as if they've lost an awful lot of activists. And if that's the case, and SNP loyalists stay at home, I hope that means Angus Brendan McNeill can give Torquil Crichton a run for his money and romp back home to Westminster to help to negotiate independence.
Hear, hear. But it seems to be the trend these days just to put out percentages and not give you full numbers in elections. But let's not open that can of worms, eh? Phil, another little thing happening this week was Ian Murray, remember him? The one up until recently, the one Labour, Tory, whatever, MP down in Edinburgh, who, now this is a so-called Labour, the Socialist Party. He was saying that if the SNP raised taxes, this will cause a mass exodus of high earners. I just want to repeat, he is meant to be the Labour Party, folks, the MP for Morningside. Tory talk from a Labour man again.
Yeah, it should be embarrassing, but it's not. It's back to the two cheeks of the same arse, and a child can disprove that statement. I'll just do a fact check. The first thing I did was a quick Yahoo Mail fact check. And the claim, Ian Murray says more Scots will head to London if Humza Yousaf raises taxes. Headline of December 14th, 2023. Doorstep answer. Income tax is lower in Scotland for those on the lowest incomes, while inward investment is at record levels, showing businesses like being here. On top of that, more people move to Scotland from England every year than leave. That's where most people come from, and this is why we've got to correct that. That imbalance gradually will become like Wales. Will become a principality, if we don't stop this, you know, and take control of our power, of our own destiny, our own future. Because most people who do come from London lack the vision that Yvonne does, although she came from Newcastle, of course, the northeast. But we're more they're just Scottish people that talk funny, really, in the northeast. So the same as us, really. And so I more than welcome, I would say. A lot of really decent folk. I'm working with a lot of guys like that just now. Fantastic. But no, Ian's talking through his cake holes, so shut it, sir. You are a liar, Ian Murray.
So, Yvonne is a long time sort of Labour and person of the left. Did you ever think you'd see the day when Labour MPs would be talking up about how wrong it was to tax the rich?
There's a lot of things that I've seen in Labour in the last couple of decades that I would never have believed. You know, the party of welfare that's now the party of warfare, the party that promised to do so much for the NHS, and look what they're talking about. Taxes, you know, that was never their shtick. And I mean, he's a miserable little sod, and words fail me, which is probably just as well, since we're not part of the watershed at the moment.
Lloyd, it's quite strange that, you know, Labour Party, I mean, if we said white, they would say black anyway, but I mean, does nobody advise them that it's not wise for Labour people to be trying to defend the millionaires?
Ian Murray's only talking to his own constituents, and everybody knows. You just crunch the numbers. Ian Murray holds that constituency because newly domiciled people from elsewhere in the United Kingdom who would normally vote both Liberal Democrat and Tory vote for Ian Murray because it fits perfectly with their ideology. His whole message there is directly for the constituents of Edinburgh South, very specifically the Grange, Morningside, Bruntsfield, the places with solid money where he weighs his vote at the moment. And he weighs his vote because he wears his Union Jack suit on a regular basis. Ian Murray is the most fraudulent Labour MP since George Fuchs. There is no question about that. The two of them are like, you know, two peas at the same pod. And no doubt Ian Murray is working his way to the red leather in the same way as George worked his way from the green leather to the red leather. Pathetic individual and a heart supporter to boot.
Not letting your heavy feelings get in the way there, eh? Two jambos. We've got to remember, though, Mr. Salmon's a jambo as well. Eva, it is, you know, the people of Scotland were told, you know, that they're thinking about going back to Labour. Why would you go back to Labour? You're just getting rid of one load of Tories to get another load of Tories.
Well, you've also got to bear in mind that Labour MPs are often in Scotland strangers to the truth. But now and again, something slips out, like my ex-MP Martin O'Neill, have spoken about him often when he's quoted in Hansard as saying the purpose of the Labour Party in Scotland is to lower the expectations of the Scottish people. Spot on, Martin. But if you look at the issues surrounding the potential for raising the tax rates, the gossip is that the shortfall for the Scottish Government's budget next year is about, I think, £1.5 billion. Fraser Vallender Institute thinks that Shona Robson might introduce a 45% tax ban for people earning £75,000 per annum or more. If that's the case, the income from that is going to be of the order of £60 million per annum or so, which is in fact a drop in a massive ocean when one bears in mind that over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, the UK Exchequer intends to extract from the Scottish North Sea £80,000 billion worth of revenue. If that does not justify a drive towards Scottish independence with all due urgency, what will?
Correct. And this you know, strengthen the union and great things. The also was announced this week, Phil, that 1,000 jobs are going at East Kilbride. And the term, can you put the headline there, Techie? But while it was being announced in Holyrood, the Tory MPs were laughing. laughing that 1,000 people were going to lose their job. Excuse me. It kind of sums up the Tories, and it sums up this union, the broad shoulders. When it suits them, they just pull jobs and they don't give a shit.
Yeah. This is more sinister to me than it first appears, perhaps to others. First of all, let's from what I understand, it's going to leave its office, and it's the UK Foreign Office leaving its base in East Kilbride, which has long been a hub of the British administration, particularly HMRC in Scotland. But the SP current for East Kilbride called for an urgent meeting to discuss this. But the actual 1,000 members of staff are moving from South Lanarkshire into Glasgow city centre. It's a relocation rather than anything else. And it'll be 1,000. It's Abercrombie House in South Lanarkshire to they haven't confirmed where it's going to be in Glasgow, at some point after 2025. So it will damage the local economy in East Kilbride.
Absolutely.
But the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office has said there's no planned job losses. Now, that's what they say. What they do could be another thing. So we have to see what they're actually going to do here. And they want to widen the department's future talent pool. That's just general garbage for justification for doing what they want to do. Now, it's going to redeploy an additional 500 additional members of staff in Scotland by 2025. That, to me, is more significant, because a spokesman for the Foreign Office says the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office is growing its presence and number of staff in Scotland. HMRC will be moving into Abercrombie House, which is a building that's already part of the UK government estate. They have a substantial UK government estate. And for me, this is the UK preparing for less powers for the devolved governments of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales by strengthening the UK administrative arms in these countries. And it's just the sign of things to come. They're preparing to retain us. They'll just give us enough power to nominally show that we are supposedly in charge of our destiny while cutting our pocket money every single year. You'll see the local government of Scotland, be it SNP or ALAPA or whomever, carrying the blame for implementing these cuts in healthcare, and because the overall, in real terms, cuts will continue, and they will continue to bleed us dry. And it's time people woke up to this fact, and this, for me, is an indicator that the British government is gearing up to do just that.
Well, here's the thing, Yvonne. Lisa Cameron left the SNP, the MP for East Kilbride. She goes into the Tory party, and now there's going to be this absolute hit on her constituency, because they may be moving to Glasgow, but it's going to really, 1,000 jobs going out of East Kilbride. It's not just the jobs in East Kilbride, it's the shops in East Kilbride, it's the butchers, the bakers, the candlestick makers, and the local economy. This is a big hit, because not everyone will be able to move into Glasgow.
Absolutely. I mean, 1,000 jobs, you can multiply that by 5 with all the trickle-down effect it has on local businesses, the corner shop, the family that make the bait, the sandwiches for the workforce, and the timing of this as well. The optics are all wrong. Christmas is just around the corner, and people are already struggling with fuel poverty and poverty in general. And now they've got this looming up on the horizon. And as Phil said, of course, the much bigger picture, like everything bad that is happening at the moment, you can trace right back to Brexit. And Europe are looking at us through the same lens as the producers for Little Britain. We are just that little speck over the channel that can be dumped on when Europe feels like it. I mean, the French must be laughing their socks off at the Rwanda scheme and everything, every small boat that comes over. And that's the contempt that Europe feels towards Britain. Unfortunately, our colonial masters in London are passing on the pain to us because we haven't got the sense or the nous to jump up and tell them to sod off, and we're going our own way. And I'm sure that there is a way that we can do it, but it's that contempt that we are having thrown at us, the Tories. They're passing on the pain from Europe, because that is the contempt with which Europe looks at Britain. And just the other week, we showed how out of kilter we are when we abstained on calling for a ceasefire in a war that isn't a war on Palestine or Hamas or Gaza. It's a war on babies and children.
Yes, indeed. We're going to come on to that. We will be discussing that. Lloyd, this means now that the UK government have got two big hubs now, two bigger cities, one down in Leith and one in Glasgow. Are you, like Phil, believing this is going to be a way that they're going to try and control us more? It's another pound, you owe me, Lloyd.
Oh, your pound, that makes a change. What I see here is another missed opportunity. Here we have another announcement about that causes an element of fear, worry and concern for families in East Kilbride and workers in that particular area. Now, instead of coming out and saying, why are you making these announcements when that affects our strategic economic planning as the Scottish Government, which it will do and does, why isn't there coordination between the Scottish Government and the British Civil Service to effectively come to a plan together for if there is a requirement for either the resettlement or the reassignment of people within the civil service? But again, no plan, no rebuttal coming whatsoever. And our people, ordinary people who work at East Kilbride, live in East Kilbride, those that are in the supply chain, hear in the morning news what sounds like 1,000 jobs are going. And as Phil pointed out, it's not really quite that. And the people from the union pointed out that about 25% of the jobs that will be relocated will actually be helpful to people because they commute from Glasgow to East Kilbride to go to their work anyway. But the main thing for East Kilbride is that's a place, the HMRC and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office were potential places for young people from school to go into the civil service. It was a clear pathway. You could see the building, and that's important to young people. But the key thing is we're allowing, or rather our government is allowing the British government to make decisions without any consultation whatsoever. And instead of standing up and saying that very thing, this was done without consultation. This is running a coach and horses through the supposed principles of devolution. Not that I'm a fan, but these are the opportunities to fight back. And all that's happened, like over Grangemouth, like over the plastics factory, like over the sale of Edinburgh Airport, they've rolled over and let the steamroller run right over them. And without a thought for the people who are thinking, is that my job? It's crazy.
Absolutely. As Lloyd says, Eva, the fight back doesn't come. But there's one wee bit of fight back, perhaps, for us to latch onto, and that was Ash Reagan, who earlier in the week put a bill through to have the Scottish Government abolish the GR bill, the Gender Recognition Bill, and get back to normal business. Do you think this will get support from the SNP?
It gets a bit of support from some SNP MSPs, but it gets substantial support from the public, in part because it might begin to heal some of the wounds in the independence movement, but especially because it'll draw a line under what's been a very shameful episode. Nobody here will ever forget the sight and the sound, for example, of Alex Cole Hamilton on his loudspeaker outside Holyrood, out in the street, shouting, "We did it for you, Beth, we did it for you," to a trans-identifying man who had been known to have been threatening women. We've got that. We've got the debacle of the men in women's prisons. everything that goes along with that, and a real serious disregard for the views of women. And in many instances, those were described by Nicola Sturgeon as being views which were not validly held. That shameful episode has got to go into the dustbin of history quickly, not just because it's been a shameful division in a movement and a country, but because it's been a very expensive exercise. Hundreds of thousands of pounds have been spent, not just on legal expenses and on external legal expenses, but in terms of flawed consultations, committee hearings in Parliament, votes in Parliament, and a process that probably irritated many, many people in the country. And the fact that there is no end in sight is even more irritating. I would imagine that Humza will have about another fortnight to decide whether or not to instruct an appeal. If there was to be an appeal, it really should be getting prepared and drafted now. I would imagine it would go to the inner house of the Court of Session. If they lose there, they'll then talk in terms of appealing to the Supreme Court, which would be utter folly on stilts. And obviously, the legal bills will just keep ratcheting up. It needs to be binned without delay. That should, I hope, lead to the termination of the Butte House Agreement, and the green tail can stop wagging the yellow dog, and we can again have a red line in Scottish politics, which would be the notion of independence and not the division that the GRR has been and will continue to be until it is binned and we start again from the beginning and we hear all voices in a sensible consultation, and we guarantee in a written constitution of an independent Scotland single-sex rights, protections, exceptions and exemptions.
Yes, yeah. If I could come to you on that same question, Yvonne, you must, as the women's officer for the Alapa Party, you must have been pleased to see Ash's bill.
I was. I mean, gosh, you know, Ash, she's been like Wonder Woman since she arrived in the Alapa Party. She's never stopped. You know, she's... but I did feel for her when she was in Holyrood, standing up, speaking as eloquently and articulately as she did from row Z right at the back. And Shona Robertson, what a sewer plum she is, standing there at the front. The dynamics of Holyrood, by the way, I think, are totally wrong. You've got the First Minister or the main minister speaking with their back to everybody. So there's no confrontation. You don't see the whites of the eyes. There's this rather cowardly, I think it's, I mean, Lloyd might tell me different, but it's not combative at all. And when Shona Robertson was speaking, she just didn't even turn round once to acknowledge Ash Regan. Of course, she couldn't, because she would have had to have gone like that. So I think the whole dynamics of Holyrood ought to be changed, because there's so many cowards in the front benches of the SNP. I'm not so sure they'd be able to stand up and spew the crap they come out with if they were actually having to face their accusers or the opposition and look them in the face. I think that the whole dynamics, I don't know who thought it up, but it's just mad. But as the women's convener for Alapa, I fired a letter straight off to Joe Farrell, the Scottish Chief Constable who lives in England. And I said, in fact, it would have been easier for me just to drive over the border. She only lives a few miles away. But I said to her, now that you have changed, or well, she hasn't changed, she's inherited a force with all its policies aligned to the GRR, are you going to retrain your officers? And so that letter went off a couple of days ago. And because, of course, this whole GRR nonsense so many groups, thanks to advice from Stonewall and other infiltrated groups like that, that have been advising big administrations to change the way that they do things because GRR is going to become law. Well, it's not. So they're all going to have to roll back. And the hidden costs must be enormous for this. But as soon as I get a reply from the Chief Constable, I will obviously share it with the party and with everyone on Prism as well.
Good. On your question, it was actually asked whose idea was Donald Dewar and the others, and it was meant to be non-confrontational in the new Hollywood, the new politics. It was also meant to be a continuous forever liberal Labour coalition forevermore. So there would be no need to have anything. They would just talk, and it was better having your back. It was easier to get the knife in and things like that because it was going to be just unionists all the time. So now you know. See, every day's a school day, even on here. Everyone's a school day.
Well, it is interesting, but I mean, do people agree with me? They can't
turn their necks. You know, the reason they can't turn their necks, you know how hard it is to turn brass necks round? Do you know? Very difficult.
Very good.
Yeah, but, I was waiting to get up. I was waiting to get up now.
The lights of people's eyes. I'm not one of, I can't be. It just doesn't seem right. Maybe
I would rather if you could wire up the chairs and someone said something stupid like, "We did it for you, Beth. You could press a button, they get an electric shock." That would be more fun.
Well, true.
Anyway, moving on quickly. Lads, time is going against us as always. In your field, Phil, energy. Now, we know the prices have been ridiculous for the consumers and these shocking. And they're talking about raising the energy cap again. The reason being that there's been a lot of non-payments because the price is so expensive. A lot of people can't afford to pay their bills. So the solution, it would seem, is to those that are paying are going to pay more to make up for the lost profits for the energy companies. Whereas old socialists like me would be saying, hit them with a tax. Never mind giving them a subsidy. This is it's mad. If people can't pay, all you're going to do is drive more people into non-payment,
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. And they're bleeding us dry, basically. And this comes because energy regulator Ofgem has announced the new energy price cap. Now, the distinction here, it's a price cap, which will you really need to look into it and understand even the basics here to get exactly what's going on. So prices set to rise, forecast another 5% from January next year, another 5%. That means energy prices remain appallingly, shockingly high, and most households will pay more than you did last winter, which was a hell of a lot. And what's worse about this is, as you hinted earlier, Roddy, it's completely unnecessary. Much of the energy price in it and high costs could be resolved politically. This completely unnecessary war with Ukraine, Europe's energy crisis is completely avoidable. It's played into by American and EU foreign policy. The elites that have taken control and the neocons that have taken control of European governments and the West are driving their own people into the ground for the benefits of the energy company. So anyway, how does this affect you? I mean, you could go to like that guy, was it Martin Lewis on energy? He's got a good explanation on it. But how does it change? So the price cap changes every 3 months, right? And recently it fell as things seemed to.
Can I ask you a question? Is the price cap not based on the price of international gas?
Yes, it's the price cap.
And only something like 6 or 10% of Britain, entirely Britain's, comes from international gas. So it's a con.
That is a con because we as Scotland are self-sufficient. We don't have to do this. We can take control of our own destiny and be net winners. We'd be like Norway. We'd be starting to run the same numbers as Norway, but producing our own oil if we build our own refinery or save Grangemouth, gas, etc. So the price cap it fluctuates due to increases, amongst other things, in the international wholesale energy market. Now, what they'll say is market instability, global events, particularly the conflict in Ukraine, are affecting this type of thing, and obviously Gaza as well, because we know there's oil, and as usual off the coast of Gaza, there's money to be made. So what people need to know, though, it's a cap. So the cap will be set at an average. I mean, it's just under, it's about 1,930 quid for a year for typical dual-fueled households, right, paying by direct debit. And those on the standard or variable tariffs. So basically, everyone that's not currently on a fixed tariff, if you pay receipt on the bill. So the prices by rising 5%, that goes up to about just 2,058 a year for a typical home. But the rates, what you need to remember is the rates are capped. You use more, you pay more. And that's what people need to remember. Don't be conned into thinking, and this goes to old folk or the poor folk that are left with the choice of food or heat. The more you use it, it's not you. There's a limited number of cost you will pay. There's a limited rate you will pay. That's the only difference it makes. You use more, you will pay more, and it will put more and more people into bankruptcy and destitution. It's appalling, absolutely appalling.
It is indeed, Lloyd, and the very same people who say, "Oh, you've got to let market forces determine this thing." This allowing it is actually corporate socialism. The word that they hate, socialism, this sharing and thing. But this is all this is, corporate socialism, isn't it? 2 quid you owe me this week. £3, you still not hit it. Hit the button, you're still on mute.
That's appalling. I'm supposed to be the adult in the room too.
Exactly.
That's a joke. I've learned that there's only one thing to say about this. Nord Stream. Nord Stream. You know, the gas price went through the roof when the Nord Stream pipe was destroyed by mysterious forces. You know, it must have been Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons. I don't know. But, you know, yes, it's the war in Ukraine. Yes, it is. But ultimately, for us, and it's what Phil said, it's what we've all been saying for years and years and years, we could be giving our people free gas. It's as simple and straightforward as that. You know, we've got serious economic problems in this country. The people who are right at the bottom of the rung, we could help them out directly, instantly. If we were an independent country and we sell X amount of gas to everybody else and we give our own folk it free. But there's something that our government could do now that would make a difference. But it would require skills, negotiating skills, ambition and vision. And that is to sit down the energy companies and come to an arrangement whereby they all remove their standing charges for people on pensions, people on income support, people on universal credit, people with disabilities. All of those people could be helped immediately, because there's a little thing going on here at the moment where the energy companies want to build new interconnectors. They want to build new pylons across our country to deliver energy to the market south of the Tweed. Now, the issues on this are about planning. So you get them in the room, and if you're an adult and you're grown up, you say to them, we will make it easier for you to do what you want to do if you do this for us, for our people. It's called negotiation. It's called vision. It's called caring for the people that elected you. Now, that could be done tomorrow. Will they do it? Not a chance.
No. That's I keep saying, things in life are simple. It's people that make them difficult. And that is the problem. Time, the clock's clicking on. A couple of things I want to cover on here. Techie, stick it up. Cymru, the Yes Cymru put up a sign this week. Their latest opinion poll showing it in Wales. They're up at 37% in favour of independence in Wales. Eva, if you remember back to when 2014, when we started, we were only at 28%. The Welsh are in a good position.
I love to see this, and what I really like about the Welsh is they're cottoning on perhaps more quickly than we did in Scotland to the need to have several different parties who are pro-independence. So obviously they've got their Yes movement, and they've also all under one banner Cymru, and they've got Plaid Cymru, Propel, and a couple of other parties that are going. I think the Greens are too. And I particularly enjoy listening to Michael Sheen speaking. And I was thinking about him when you were talking earlier on about, you know, honours in the British state and what have you. And Michael Sheen, Welsh actor, returned his OBE after researching the relationship between Wales and the British state. And he said, I'd be a hypocrite if I said the things I was going to say in my lecture about the nature of that relationship if I held on to it. There's a man who's an inspirational speaker. And there are so many in Wales who now are having found the courage to research and understand what has happened in Wales for hundreds of years, exactly the same as in Scotland, where they were invaded and exploited and, in effect, colonised. The Welsh history is not so very different from Scottish or that of Ireland. So good on you, Wales. More power to your elbow. Get wired in. 37% in 2023. Maybe by next year you're in the 40s, and the year after that, I hope you have a referendum.
Yeah. It's worth noting that in this union of equals, the Irish, of course, have independence movements, the Scots have independence movements, the Welsh have an independence movement, but surprise, surprise, England doesn't. I wonder why that is. As I say, the clock's beat this, and I want to get this in, and I know it's close to your heart, Yvonne. You've been skipping around it in a few questions. How we got from the tax office in East Kilbride to Gaza, I don't know, but you did really well when you did that one. But the Israeli ambassador, one of the things that the Israelis are saying all the time is these people are so bad because they don't want us to exist, and they would see us in, and that's why we've got to fight them and do all this, and that's why they get the sympathy. The Israeli ambassador to the UK, a most obnoxious woman, I've got to say, was on television on Sky, and I think we have the clip, the still on it, where saying that Palestine has no right to exist. They're saying the very thing that they say is the problem that they've got. It's appalling.
Is there still a chance for a two-state solution?
I think it's about time for the world to realize the Oslo paradigm failed on the 7th of October, and we need to build a new one. And in order to build a new one...
Does that new one include the Palestinians living in a state of their own? Do they have a state?
The answer is absolutely no.
Powerful video there, Yvonne, but the bottom line is the Israeli position is Israel is saying that Palestine has no right to exist. Quid, you're on mute. What is it with you guys? You're on the sherry already?
Every single thing that the Israelis accuse the Palestinians of, they are actually doing themselves, and they project all of that onto other people. And I was saying to somebody the other day about we need to get rid of that that Israeli ambassador. And I have to say that's through the Court of St. James, not by bumping her off. But I would say that, you know, let's get rid of her. And a colleague of mine said, no, keep her there. She's actually good for the Palestinian cause, because people need to know this is what they're saying in Tel Aviv. She is just reflecting the views of the government that she works for. And it's quite true. They have no intention of entering into peace with the Palestinians. And at the moment, they're saying that they can't talk to the Palestinians as long as Hamas are in existence. Well, Hamas are going nowhere. I'm not praising them, but speaking as somebody from a military background, they are playing a brilliant guerrilla warfare, and they're scaring the SH-1T out of ordinary Israeli troops, because these guerrilla fighters from Hamas are popping up in the least expected places, and they're targeting senior officers, and they're taking out senior officers, which is leaving the foot soldiers absolutely panic-stricken. And what Israel hasn't said at the moment is they've lost a lieutenant colonel and 3 majors from the Golan brigade. And this is huge. But of course, they're keeping that quiet. And I just got a phone call before I came on air that these trigger-happy idiots in the Israeli forces have just killed 3 of their own hostages. And of course, we'll get spin and lies in the next 24 hours about that. But this war is not going the way that Israel expected. I think it could easily become another Ukraine. Ukraine is going to last for at least 10 years unless America stops supplying and weapons and leaving them high and dry, which I think it's probably going to do now. And we're just not being told the truth about what is happening in Israel. And the Israeli people aren't being told the truth either. They don't see the scenes that I see on Al Jazeera English. You know, they're just getting, all they're getting is what the Americans got after 9/11, just shocking images from 9/11. They're being fed on a daily diet of shocking images on October the 7th, continually told this is the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. They aren't seeing Israel strip men to their bare essentials and have them sitting semi-naked on roads in groups, which is actually what the Germans did. And I know that that invokes all sorts of hysteria when you start comparing what the Third Reich did to what the Israeli Defense Forces are doing. But I have to say there are some alarming parallels. And it would be remiss of me not to mention that. But the lies that they're telling, you know, they said all these men are Hamas fighters. Well, I looked at them. Some of them were teachers. Some of them were medics. Some of them were journalists. Whatever they weren't fit young Hamas fighters. They were ordinary blokes who were told to strip off down to their shreddies and sit there while they were photographed for false propaganda. So, you know, we cannot believe what we're being told from Tel Aviv.
Correct. Last point, because the clock really has beaten us, Lloyd. I don't know if you saw the article recently. I saw it today about the UN Genocide Convention of 1948, and they were questioning a European diplomat who said, without a shadow of a doubt, this would go through at The Hague, and that Netanyahu and his gang would all be on there, because this is a genocide by the UN's definition of genocide. The problem that they're not invoking it is because those who have colluded and assisted Israel, e.g. the United States of America in particular, the United Kingdom, the EU, they would all be complicit, and they would also have to go to The Hague. So they're stopping doing what needs to be done because they don't want to upset the Americans, the Brits, and the Europeans. And meanwhile, the Palestinians are dying in huge numbers. The world's screwed.
It's all about self-protection, Roddy. You know, I mean, if you have international law, then you must subscribe to it. If you don't subscribe to it, then you're a member of a criminal gang. That's all there is to it. What we've discovered over the past couple of months, for those of us that didn't already know it, NATO, the European Union, United States, and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and Israel are a criminal gang. That's all there is to it. And what they're doing now is, because of their conspiracy, their criminal conspiracy to create genocide, is they're now trying to help each other out, which is why the guy from the International Court of Justice said just last week, the prosecutor, Armin, said that they couldn't go ahead with the prosecution because of political interference. What is the purpose? You know, how many meetings of the United Nations have there been the past few weeks where the vast majority say, yes, ceasefire, yes, stop this. But the criminal conspiracy can say no, they can prevent it, they can veto it. What's going on just now is just appalling. I mean, for me, the most horrible thing was I saw yesterday Israeli soldiers who broke into the mosque in Jenin, a mosque that I attended in 2001. After the Israeli invasion of 2001. And to see them standing there using the prayer calling apparatus to chant out Jewish prayers and singing happy songs of Hanukkah, you know, that form of arrogance, that form of rubbing people's nose in the dirt, because they know that, you know, this is it's a religious crime, it's a social crime, it's just a straightforward humanitarian crime. To behave in that manner, it crystallized for me the attitude of the Israelis, the triumphalism, the viciousness, and the total and complete lack of respect for any other culture other than their own. These people are despicable.
Yeah, as you say, it shows that the International Court of Justice and the United Nations, you know, can be manipulated and will be manipulated. And for those of you in Scotland who think Scottish independence is going to come through either of those, take this as a lesson. Politics will always get in the way. Look, folks, time's run out. We could keep going on in a few more subjects for quite some time. Can I thank you? We'll do it one next week, or last one before Christmas, and I say we'll have a couple of specials for you. One of them on Palestine. I've got some real heavy hitters in Palestine coming in to talk about what's going to happen, what could happen, what may happen, what may not happen. We'll do that and we'll release them through the holiday period. But until we see you all again soon, please, take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.